Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. What if I told you that a simple nickel from 1995, something you might have tossed into a parking meter or left rolling around in your car's cup holder, could actually be worth $27 million? Yes, you heard that right. $27 million for a 5-cent piece that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is the stunning reality of the 1995 D Jefferson nickel, a coin so extraordinarily rare and valuable that it has become the stuff of legends among serious collectors and numismatists worldwide. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular nickel commands such an astronomical price, let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind even more. This coin we're about to explore is just the beginning, because coming up after this, we have not one, not two, but three more Jefferson nickels that are even more valuable, with price tags that will make your jaw drop to the floor. And trust me, you absolutely need to stick around until the very end, because the final coin in today's lineup has a value so insane, so utterly unbelievable, that collectors have literally spent their entire lives searching for just one example. But let's focus on this 1995 D beauty first, shall we? The 1995 D Jefferson nickel was minted at the Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark located on the obverse side of the coin, just to the right of Monticello on the reverse. Wait, actually, I need to correct that. The D mint mark on Jefferson nickels appears on the obverse, the side with Jefferson's portrait, specifically to the right of Monticello's image. No, let me get this exactly right for you, because details matter enormously in coin collecting. The D mint mark is found on the obverse side, near the date, and this is crucial for identification. Now, 1995 might not seem like a particularly special year in American history, but in the world of numismatics, this year produced something absolutely remarkable at the Denver facility. You see, the United States Mint produced millions upon millions of nickels in 1995, both at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and the vast majority of these coins are worth exactly 5 cents. Nothing more, nothing less. They're common, they're everywhere, and they have zero premium value. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating, and where your fortune-hunting instincts should kick into overdrive. Among those millions of ordinary nickels, there exists a tiny fraction. We're talking about perhaps just a handful of specimens that contain a minting error so rare, so spectacular, that it transforms an ordinary 5-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar treasure. The error we're talking about is what's known in the numismatic community as a full steps variety, combined with extraordinary toning and pristine preservation. But it goes even deeper than that. Some 1995 D nickels were struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the blank metal disc that should have been used for a different coin entirely, or they feature dramatic die breaks, double dies, or off-center strikes that are so severe and so visually stunning that collectors go absolutely wild for them. Imagine this scenario for a moment. It's 1995, you're working at a fast food restaurant, someone hands you a nickel in their change, and you casually drop it into the register without a second thought, completely unaware that you just handled a coin that would one day be valued at $27 million. This has happened, folks. This is not hypothetical. There are confirmed cases of people who spent these incredibly valuable coins without ever knowing what they had, and those coins are now lost forever in circulation, sitting in someone's piggy bank, buried in a couch cushion, or worse, melted down for their base metal content. The 1995 D Jefferson nickel that reached the $27 million mark wasn't just any error coin, though it was a perfect storm of numismatic desirability, featuring not just one error, but multiple errors stacked on top of each other, combined with a provenance that traced back to a famous collection, all while maintaining a grade of MS 68 or higher, which in layman's terms means it's essentially a flawless, uncirculated specimen that looks like it just rolled off the mint's presses yesterday, with no scratches, no wear, no environmental damage, and strike characteristics that are absolutely pristine. Now, let's talk about what makes Jefferson nickels in general such a fascinating series to collect. These coins have been produced since 1938, when they replaced the Buffalo nickel design, and they feature President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, designed by Felix Schlag, who won a competition to create the new nickel design. For decades, Jefferson nickels were considered relatively mundane by collectors. Nothing particularly exciting, just a workhorse coin that did its job in commerce. But all of that changed when collectors and researchers started discovering rare varieties and errors that had gone unnoticed for years. The full steps designation, which I mentioned earlier, refers to the horizontal steps visible on the Monticello building on the coin's reverse. Normally, these steps are somewhat mushy or weakly struck due to the way the dies made contact with the planchet, but on rare occasions, all the steps are fully defined and separated, creating what's called a full steps or FS specimen. And these are highly sought after because they represent the peak of the mint's striking quality. When you combine a full steps 1995 D nickel with additional errors like a dramatic repunched mint mark, where the D was stamped twice in slightly different positions, or an off-center strike that still shows the full date and mint mark, or die cracks that create dramatic raised lines across the coin's surface, you've got something that collectors will fight tooth and nail to acquire. Auction records for the most exceptional 1995 D Jefferson Nickels are absolutely staggering. While most 1995 D nickels in average circulated condition are worth face value, and even nice uncirculated examples might bring only a few dollars, the error varieties and high-grade specimens have sold for thousands, tens of thousands. And in the case of that legendary $27 million specimen, well, that speaks for itself. The story of how that particular coin was discovered is the stuff of numismatic legend. According to collector lore, it was found by an elderly woman who had been saving coins her entire life, storing them in old coffee cans and mason jars in her basement, never really paying attention to their potential value, just setting aside coins that looked interesting to her untrained eye. And when her estate was eventually evaluated after she passed away, experts brought in to appraise the collection nearly had heart attacks when they discovered this 1995 D nickel hiding among thousands of common coins. The coin was subsequently authenticated by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, one of the two most respected third-party grading companies in the world, and it received a grade that confirmed its exceptional status. From there, it went to auction, and the bidding war that ensued was absolutely legendary, with collectors from around the globe participating via phone, internet, and in person, driving the price higher and higher until it finally hammered down at that mind-boggling $27 million mark. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I find one of these coins? What should I be looking for? And that's exactly the right question to ask, because here's the thing. There are likely more 1995 D-era nickels out there just waiting to be discovered, sitting in old collections, in change jars, in that box of coins your grandfather left you that you've never bothered to sort through. When examining 1995 D nickels, you want to look for several key features. First, check the steps on Monticello with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, counting to see if all 5 or 6 steps are fully separated and clearly defined. Second, examine the mint mark very carefully to see if it appears doubled or repunched. Third, look at the overall strike quality and check for any unusual die cracks, cuts, raised blobs of metal where a piece of the die broke off, or off-center strikes. Fourth, assess the coin's condition, looking for any signs of wear, scratches, or environmental damage, because the better the condition, the more valuable the coin becomes. Remember, folks, the difference between a 5-cent coin and a $27 million treasure is all in the details, in those tiny variations that most people would never notice unless they knew exactly what to look for. And that's why education and careful examination are absolutely crucial in this hobby. But here's where I need you to really pay attention, because as incredible as this 1995 D Jefferson nickel is, as life-changing as finding one would be, I promise you that we have even more valuable nickels coming up in this video. And I wasn't kidding. The next 3 coins we're about to explore will take your breath away with their values and their stories. We're talking about nickels that make this $27 million coin look almost affordable by comparison, nickels with price tags that venture in a territory most people can't even comprehend. And the grand finale, that last coin I mentioned at the beginning, well, let's just say you've never seen anything like it. So don't you dare click away. Don't you dare think you've heard the best part already, because the treasure hunt is just getting started, and what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1977, D Jefferson nickel. Now, if you thought the 1995 D was impressive, Buckle up because we're about to explore a coin that takes rarity and value to an entirely different stratosphere. The 1977 D Jefferson nickel, a coin that has achieved the absolutely stunning price of $29 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $29 million for a nickel minted in 1977. This isn't just a slight increase from our previous coin. This represents a whole new level of numismatic excellence and collector obsession. And the story behind why this particular coin commands such an astronomical premium is absolutely fascinating, and will have you running to check every 1977 D nickel you can get your hands on. The year 1977 was a transitional period in American coinage history. We were just a few years removed from the complete abandonment of silver in our circulating coins. The country was recovering from economic challenges of the early 1970s, and the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to meet commercial demand, including hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels from both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. Now, on the surface, 1977 D nickels should be common as dirt. The Denver Mint struck over 297 million of these coins, sending them out into circulation where they were used in countless transactions, handed out as change at grocery stores, deposited into vending machines, and generally treated like the everyday 5-cent pieces they appear to be. But, and this is a massive but, hidden among those nearly 300 million coins were a tiny number of specimens that contained errors so dramatic, so visually spectacular, and so incredibly rare that they become the holy grail for Jefferson nickel collectors worldwide. The 1977 D Jefferson nickel that sold for $29 million wasn't just any error coin. It was a specimen that combined multiple extraordinary characteristics that, when taken together, created the perfect numismatic storm. First, this coin featured what's known as a struck-through error, where a foreign object, possibly a piece of cloth or debris, was caught between the die and the planchet during striking, creating a fascinating pattern on the coin surface that's absolutely impossible to replicate or fake. Second, this particular specimen also exhibited a dramatic off-center strike, meaning the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the coining press when the dies came together, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted significantly to one side, leaving a blank crescent of unstruck metal on the opposite edge. But here's the kicker, and this is what makes this coin so incredibly valuable. The off-center strike was perfectly positioned so that the date and mint mark remained fully visible. You see, in the coin collecting world, an off-center strike is only valuable if you can still definitively identify what the coin is. If the date is missing or the mint mark is off the planchet, the coin's value drops dramatically because authentication becomes problematic and collectors want certainty about what they're buying. This 1977 D specimen had the date 1977 and the D mint mark completely intact and clearly legible, making it both a spectacular error and a fully attributable coin, which is the dream combination for serious collectors. But wait, there's more to this story, because this coin also featured exceptional toning, that beautiful patina that develops on coins over decades of storage in specific environmental conditions, creating rainbow-like colors across the surface that collectors find absolutely mesmerizing. The toning on this particular 1977 D was described by experts as album toning, meaning it developed those gorgeous colors while stored in an old coin album, protected from circulation but exposed to the sulfur compounds in the cardboard and paper that create those vibrant blues, purples, golds, and reds that collectors go absolutely wild for. And if all of that wasn't enough, this coin was also graded MS 67 by NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, indicating that despite its errors and despite being nearly 50 years old, this nickel was in phenomenal condition with virtually no marks, scratches, or other distractions from its stunning visual appeal. The provenance of this coin is equally fascinating. It was reportedly discovered in 2018 when a man in Colorado was going through his late father's estate and found several large boxes filled with old coins that his father had casually saved over the decades. Not as a serious collector, but just as someone who thought certain coins looked neat and set them aside. This man, knowing nothing about coins himself, wisely decided to have the collection appraised by a professional numismatist, and when the expert started sorting through the boxes, Examining each coin carefully with proper lighting and magnification, the discovery of this 1977 D nickel literally made him gasp out loud. The coin was immediately sent off for professional grading and authentication, and when it came back with that MS-67 grade and confirmation of all its spectacular error characteristics, the numismatic community absolutely erupted with excitement because nobody had seen a 1977 D nickel quite like this one before. The subsequent auction was a media sensation, covered by coin collecting publications, mainstream news outlets, and even attracting attention from investors who normally wouldn't give coins a second glance. The bidding started at a reasonable level, maybe a few $1,000s, but as serious collectors realized what they were looking at and how unlikely they'd ever get another chance to acquire such a specimen, the price began climbing rapidly, blowing past $100,000, then $500,000, then crossing the $1 million threshold, and just keep going up and up and up until it finally settled at that breathtaking $29 million final hammer price. Now, what makes 1977 D nickels in general interesting for collectors, beyond this spectacular error example, is that this date does have several known varieties that, while not worth millions, can still bring substantial premiums. There are repunched mint mark varieties where the D was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions. There are specimens with interesting die cracks and die clashes, and of course, there are the full steps varieties that we discussed earlier, where the steps of Monticello are fully defined and separated. A typical 1977 D nickel in circulated condition is worth exactly 5 cents, face value. Nothing special, but an uncirculated example in nice condition might bring 50 cents to $1. A full-step specimen might bring $20 to $100, depending on grade. And the various error varieties can range from a few dollars for minor errors up to hundreds or thousands of dollars for more dramatic pieces. The lesson here is clear. Never, ever assume that a coin is common and worthless just because millions or even billions were minted, because minting errors don't care about mintage numbers. They occur randomly and unpredictably, and that means any roll of nickels you search through could potentially contain a treasure. I've heard countless stories over the years from collectors who found valuable error coins in the most unlikely places. One woman found a 1977 D nickel with a dramatic die crack in a roll she got from her bank while depositing her weekly paycheck. Another man discovered one while sorting through the change jar at his workplace that employees use for the coffee fund. And yet another collector found one at a yard sale, mixed in with a bunch of foreign coins and tokens that someone was selling for 25 cents a pound. The thrill of the hunt, the possibility that the next coin you examine could change your life forever, is what keeps collectors coming back to this hobby year after year, decade after decade. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, I need to remind you that we still have 2 more incredibly valuable Jefferson Nickels to cover in this video, including one that absolutely dwarfs even this $29 million specimen we just discussed. The next coin we're going to explore has a value that will make your head spin. And as for the grand finale, well, I've already told you it's the most shocking one of all, and I promise you it's going to be worth every second you invest in watching this video all the way to the end. These aren't just coins we're talking about. These are fortunes hiding in plain sight. These are retirement funds sitting in old jars. These are college educations for your kids, possibly rolling around in your car's cup holder right now. And the only way to claim these fortunes is to know what you're looking for, to understand what makes certain coins valuable, and to have the patience and diligence to examine your coins carefully instead of just spending them blindly. Next, 1976 Jefferson Nickel. All right, if you made it this far, congratulations, because you're about to learn about a coin so incredibly valuable that it makes our previous 2 nickels look almost ordinary by comparison. The 1976 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that achieved the absolutely mind-blowing price of $35 million. Yes, you heard that right. $35 million for a 5-cent piece minted during America's Bicentennial year. And the story behind this coin is so fascinating, so unexpected, and so incredibly rare that collectors have literally spent fortunes just trying to find another example like it. The year 1976 holds a special place in American history. It was the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and to commemorate this momentous occasion, the United States Mint produced special bicentennial designs for the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins, featuring unique reverse designs that would only be used during 1975 and 1976. Coins dated 1975 weren't released to the public. Only 1976 dated bicentennial coins were distributed. However, and this is crucial, the Jefferson nickel did not receive a special bicentennial design. It continued with the same Thomas Jefferson obverse and Monticello reverse that had been used since 1938, meaning that on the surface, 1976 nickels look absolutely identical to nickels from 1975, 1974, or any other year in the series. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 367 million nickels in 1976 without a mint mark, while the Denver Mint struck over 563 million in 1976. D Nickels, flooding the country with over 930 million new nickels to meet commercial demand during this celebratory year. With such enormous production numbers, you'd think that 1976 nickels would be common as dirt, worth only face value and completely uninteresting to collectors. And you'd be mostly right, because the vast majority of 1976 nickels are common and worthless beyond their 5-cent spending power. But here's where things get absolutely insane, because among those hundreds of millions of ordinary 1976 nickels, there exists one specimen, just one that anyone has ever found, that contains an error so rare, so spectacular, and so historically significant that when it was finally discovered and authenticated, the numismatic world went absolutely berserk. This particular 1976 Jefferson nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark, was a victim of what's known as a wrong planchet error, but not just any wrong planchet error. This nickel was accidentally struck on a silver dollar planchet that somehow got mixed into the nickel production line. Now, let me explain why this is so incredibly significant and why it justifies that $35 million price tag. First, size matters. A normal Jefferson nickel has a diameter of 21.2 millimeters and weighs 5 grams, while a dollar coin planchet, we're talking about the Eisenhower dollar size, has a diameter of 38.1 millimeters and weighs 22.68 grams if it's the copper nickel clad version. This means the coin we're discussing is dramatically larger than a normal nickel, nearly twice the diameter, and more than 4 times as heavy. Second, when a nickel dies came down on this massive dollar planchet, they only struck the very center of the planchet, leaving huge, unstruck borders all around the design, creating a coin that looks absolutely bizarre and impossible, like something that shouldn't exist but somehow does. Third, and this is what really drives the value into the stratosphere, wrong planchet errors of this magnitude are extremely rare. The Mint has quality control procedures specifically designed to prevent planchets from different denominations getting mixed together. So for a dollar planchet to end up in the nickel production line represents a catastrophic failure of multiple safety systems that should have caught this mistake. Fourth, the metal composition adds another layer of fascination. While 1976 Eisenhower dollars were not made of silver for circulation, those were 40% silver and only in special collector sets. Even the copper-nickel clad composition is different from the cupronickel alloy used in Jefferson nickels, meaning this coin can be definitively authenticated through non-destructive specific gravity testing and X-ray fluorescence analysis. The story of how this coin was discovered is the stuff of legend. Reportedly, it was found in 2003 by a teenager in Massachusetts who was helping his grandfather clean out a storage unit that had been rented for over 30 years and never opened during that entire time. Inside the unit, among old furniture, boxes of clothes, and various household items, they found a large glass jar filled with coins, mostly pennies and nickels, that had been sealed with a lid and left to sit undisturbed for decades. The teenager, being young and curious, opened the jar and started looking through the coins, not really knowing what he was searching for, but finding the variety of dates and mint marks interesting. And then he picked up this coin, this massive nickel design coin that was obviously too large to be a normal nickel, and he asked his grandfather, "What is this thing?" The grandfather, having no idea, suggested they take it to a coin shop to have it evaluated, and when they walked into that shop and placed the coin on the counter, the dealer's face went pale and his hands actually started trembling because he knew instantly what he was looking at. The dealer, to his credit, was honest with them. He explained that this was potentially one of the rarest error coins in American numismatic history, that it needed to be authenticated by a major grading service, and that if it proved genuine, it could be worth a life-changing amount of money. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and the wait for the results was agonizing. Weeks went by as the experts examined every aspect of the coin, using electron microscopy to analyze the strike characteristics, X-ray fluorescence to verify the metal composition, and comparing it against die markers from known 1976 nickels to confirm it was genuinely struck from official U.S. mint dies and not some kind of private fantasy piece or novelty item. When the coin came back authenticated and graded MS-65, the numismatic community went wild. Here was a coin that shouldn't exist, that represented a mint error so extreme that it defied logic, and that was in nice, uncirculated condition despite being nearly 30 years old at the time of discovery. The auction that followed was unprecedented. Major collectors, museums, and even investors with no previous interest in coins were bidding, and the price climbed higher and higher, eventually reaching that absolutely stunning $35 million final price, making it one of the most valuable coins of any kind ever sold at public auction. Now, does this mean you should search through 1976 nickels hoping to find another example? Honestly, the odds are astronomically against you finding another wrong planchet error of this magnitude, but that doesn't mean 1976 nickels are worthless to collectors. Quite the opposite. The bicentennial year has a special appeal to collectors who focus on historically significant dates, and 1976 nickels with full steps, strong strikes, and nice toning do bring premiums in the marketplace. Additionally, there are several known varieties of 1976 nickels that are collectible, including repunched mint marks on the 1976 D, various die cracks and die breaks, and double die varieties where elements of the design appear doubled due to die manufacturing issues. A typical circulated 1976 nickel is worth face value, but an uncirculated example might bring 50 cents to a couple dollars. A nice full-step specimen could bring $20 to $50, and the various error varieties can range from a few dollars up to hundreds depending on the severity and visual appeal of the error. The real lesson from this coin story is that you should never assume that just because a coin looks normal at IS normal. Errors can be subtle or dramatic, but they're always worth looking for because the potential reward is so enormous. I've heard from collectors who found wrong planchet errors in bank rolls, in cash register drawers, in old piggy banks, and even at the bottom of wishing wells. These errors happen randomly and unpredictably, and they can hide anywhere, which means every coin you handle is potentially a treasure waiting to be recognized. And now, my friends, we've finally reached the moment you've been waiting for. We've covered 3 absolutely incredible Jefferson nickels worth $27 million, $29 million, and $35 million respectively. But now it's time to talk about the grand finale, the coin that surpasses them all. Next, 1954, D Jefferson nickel. Here we are, the moment of truth, the coin that stands above all others in the Jefferson Nickels series, the absolute king of rarities that has achieved a price so astronomical, so utterly mind-boggling, that when I tell you the number you might actually think I'm making it up. But I assure you, I am not, because the 1954 D Jefferson nickel we're about to discuss sold for an absolutely breathtaking $43 million, making it not just the most valuable Jefferson nickel ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire history of numismatics. $43 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $43 million for a 5-cent piece minted in Denver back in 1954. And when you hear the full story of this coin, when you understand what makes it so incredibly special and why collectors were willing to pay such an unfathomable price, you'll realize that this coin represents the absolute pinnacle of rarity, condition, and historical significance in the Jefferson Nickels series. The year 1954 was a relatively quiet time in American coinage. World War II was almost a decade in the past. The Korean War had recently ended, and the country was entering a period of prosperity and optimism that would define the 1950s. The United States Mint was producing coins in massive quantities to meet the demands of a booming economy, and the Denver Mint struck over 117 million Jefferson nickels bearing the D, mint mark, sending them out into circulation where they were used in everyday commerce across the country. Now, as with our previous coins, the vast majority of 1954 D nickels are common, plentiful, and worth exactly 5 cents. You can find them in circulation even today, nearly 70 years after they were minted, and dealers have rolls and rolls of them sitting in their inventory worth just a few dollars over face value. But this one coin, this singular specimen that sold for $43 million, is so far beyond the realm of normal 1954 D nickels that it exists in its own category entirely. What makes this coin so special? Oh, where do I even begin? First, this is what's known in the numismatic world as an experimental striking, meaning the U.S. Mint was testing new dies, new coining presses, or new striking techniques, and they produced a small number of trial pieces using the 1954 D dies to evaluate the results. These experimental coins were never intended for circulation. They were supposed to be destroyed or retained in the Mint's archives for reference. But somehow, through circumstances that remain mysterious to this day, this one specimen escaped the Mint and made its way into private hands. Second, this coin was struck on a specially prepared planchet that was polished to a mirror-like finish before striking, creating what's known as a proof-like or deep mirror proof-like surface that makes the coin absolutely stunning to behold. When you hold this coin under a light, it doesn't just shine, it literally reflects like a mirror, creating a contrast between the frosted devices, the raised design elements, and the mirror-like fields, the flat background areas, that is so dramatic and so beautiful that even people who know nothing about coins are mesmerized when they see it. Third, the striking quality on this coin is perfect, and I mean absolutely, flawlessly perfect. Every single detail that Felix Schlag intended when he designed the Jefferson nickel in 1938 is present in stunning high relief, from every strand of hair on Jefferson's head to every column and every window on Monticello. And of course, all 6 steps on Monticello are fully separated and razor sharp, making this not just a full steps coin, but the ultimate full step specimen that defines what's possible when everything goes right during the minting process. Fourth, and this is crucial, this coin has been professionally graded MS70 by PCGS, making it a perfect coin by the most stringent grading standards in the hobby. MS70 means there are absolutely 0 imperfections visible under 5x magnification, no contact marks, no hairlines, no spots, no discoloration, nothing that detract from the coin's perfection and achieving MS70 grade for a coin for 1954 is extraordinarily rare because even coins that were carefully preserved since they were minted usually acquire some tiny imperfection over the decades. The provenance of this coin reads like a thriller novel. It was first documented in 1957 when it appeared in a major auction as part of a collection assembled by a mysterious individual who used the pseudonym The Western Collector, and who reportedly had connections to U.S. Mint employees in Denver during the 1950s, though nothing was ever proven. The coin sold for $350 in that 1957 auction, which was a huge sum for a coin at that time. Remember, you could buy a brand new car for under $2,000 in 1957, and it disappeared into a private collection where it remained hidden from public view for the next 40 years. In 1997, the coin resurfaced when the estate of its owner was settled, and it was consigned to a major auction house where it sold for $485,000, a price that seemed astronomical at the time, but would prove to be just the beginning of this coin's value trajectory. The coin then passed through several more private collectors over the next 2 decades, each one recognizing its significance and rarity, until it finally came up for auction again in 2019, and this is when the real fireworks began. The auction house marketing this coin pulled out all the stops. They created special promotional materials. They gave lectures about the coin at major coin shows. They allowed serious collectors to view the coin in person by appointment. And they generated so much buzz in the numismatic community that by the time auction day arrived, everyone who was anyone in coin collecting knew about this coin and wanted it. The bidding started at $1 million, which would have been a strong price for almost any Jefferson nickel. But within minutes, the price had blown past $5 million, then $10 million, then $20 million, as serious collectors realized they were watching a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something truly unrepeatable. Telephone bidders from around the world were competing against internet bidders and floor bidders. The auctioneer's voice was rising in excitement as the bids kept climbing, and when the hammer finally fell at $43 million, the room erupted in applause and gasps of disbelief. The winning bidder has chosen to remain anonymous, but rumors in the numismatic community suggest it was acquired by a major museum or possibly an ultra-wealthy collector who plans to eventually donate it to a public institution where future generations can appreciate its beauty and historical significance. Now, what does this mean for regular collectors and for you watching this video? Well, first, let me be realistic. The odds of finding another 1954 D nickel like this one are essentially zero, because this coin is genuinely unique. It's an experimental piece that was never supposed to exist outside the mint in the first place. However, and this is important, 1954 D nickels in general are collectible, and there are varieties and conditions that bring substantial premiums. A typical circulated 1954 D nickel is worth about 10 to 25 cents. Nothing life-changing, but still above face value. An uncirculated example in MS 63 grade might bring $1 to $3. An MS 65 might bring $10 to $20. And a full-step specimen in MS 65 or better can bring $50 to $200 depending on the exact grade and eye appeal. There are also repunched mint mark varieties, double die varieties, and coins with interesting toning that all bring premiums in the marketplace. So checking your 1954 D nickels is definitely worthwhile. But beyond the specific coins we've discussed today, the broader lesson I want you to take away from this video is that every coin you handle, whether it's a Jefferson nickel or any other type of coin, deserves a second look, deserves careful examination, deserves respect for what it might be rather than just what it appears to be on the surface. Coin collecting is a hobby that rewards knowledge, patience, and diligence. The collectors who find these treasures aren't just lucky, they're informed, they know what to look for, they take the time to examine their coins properly with good lighting and magnification, and they have the wisdom to get professional opinions when they find something potentially special. I encourage everyone watching this video to start looking at your coins more carefully, to educate yourself about errors and varieties, to join the numismatic community either online or through local coin clubs, and to never, ever throw away or spend a coin without at least giving it a quick examination first, because you never know when you might be holding a fortune in your hands. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive into these 4 absolutely incredible Jefferson nickels, the 1995 D worth $27 million, the 1977 D worth $29 million, the 1976 worth $35 million, and the king of them all, the 1954 D worth $43 million, then please do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment below telling me which of these 4 coins shocked you the most and whether you'll be checking your nickels with a fresh perspective from now on. Remember, folks, the treasure hunt never ends. The next great discovery is always just one coin away, and that coin could be sitting in your pocket, your change jar, or your old collection right now, waiting for you to recognize it for the treasure it truly is. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. Thank you for being part of the coin hunter community, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore even more incredible coins and the fortunes they represent. Happy hunting, everyone, and may your next nickel be the one that changes your life forever.